So here you go. Proof that the U.S. elections were absolutely have been rigged for a long time. There's the guy right there. That's the guy who Tom Pheeny paid to create this software.
Mr. Curtis, would you please state your full name for the record?
My name is Clinton Eugene Curtis.
And where do you reside?
Clinton Eugene Curtis.
Tallahassee, Florida.
And what is your profession?
I'm a computer programmer.
Would you please speak into the microphone so the audience can hear your testimony?
There's not a lot for me to add. I just want you to see this because it's proof.
Computer programmer.
Mr. Curtis, are there programs that can be used?
Have you noticed that this video has been up since March 2006? Okay, sorry. This was way earlier than I thought. This is not 2010. This was way earlier. There's less than 1 million views. A meaningful amount less than a fucking million views on a video from 2006 with literal 100% video footage of a guy admitting to rigging elections.
Yes.
How do you know that to be the case?
Because in October of 2000...
Here, I'll
Mr. Curtis, are there programs that can be used to secretly fix elections?
Yes.
How do you know that to be the
Yes. His answer was one word. Yes.
case?
Because in October...
They asked him, how do you know that to be the case? So just so you hear this. Are there software that exists to rig elections?
Hear your testimony.
I'm a computer programmer.
Mr. Curtis, are there programs that can be used to secretly fix elections?
Yes.
How do you know that to be the case?
Because in October of 2000, I wrote a prototype.
The year 2000. Oh, I'm sorry. This was before the Bush-Gore deal. Oh.
For President Congressman Tom Pheeny at the company I work for in Oviedo, Florida, that did just that.
And when you say did just that, it would rig an election?
It would flip the vote 51-49.
What? Isn't that strange? All those fucking barely beat states, they were all 51-49, weren't they? And we know the ballot boxes were being stuffed, so we know that that's what they always push for, is those small little, oh, they just barely turned Florida. Oh, they just barely turned Arizona. They just barely turned Nevada.
Whoever you wanted
barely
to go
turned
to,
Pennsylvania.
and whichever race you wanted to win.
And would that program that you designed be something that elections officials that might be on county boards of elections could detect?
They'd never see it.
Okay, so you have a computer programmer who is testifying before the motherfucking Supreme Court that says, I was paid by Senator Tom Pheeny. My company was hired to create software that would rig elections on voting machines to make them 51-49 for whoever they wanted, and the election officials would be unable to tell.
Mr. Would you answer that question once again?
They would never see it.
So how would such a program, a secret program that fixes the election, how could it be detected?
You would have to view it either in the source code, or you'd have to have a receipt and then count the hard paper against the actual vote total. Other than that, you won't see it.
Which, by the way, if you remember the Jan 6 protesters demanding to do just that, to specifically certify the votes via the receipts and not via the electronic distribution, which is legitimately why they pretended that there was an attack on the Capitol and why they pretended that they were scared so that they could just certify the votes anyway, because they know for a fact that if they had counted the votes versus the receipts, they would have been off.
Mr. Curtis, if you had been asked...
Just between you and me, Jan 6th was actually democracy standing up against the tyrannical government. And you can tell because the government tried to pretend that they were trying to overthrow democracy. That is the exact line that the government will always use when their tyranny is being threatened. They will say the person threatening them is threatening democracy, because the concept of democracy to weak people is being protected from other people by the state. And they do not understand that it is a representative system of free individuals who are all representing their own private property rights and going around life without infringing upon the rights of others. But hey.
You or others with your professional expertise have been asked to design a protective program that would protect the Ohio elections from against such software to fix the election. Could you have done so?
If we've been asked to make a program that can fix the election, sure, anybody can do it.
No, could you have designed a program or a procedure or a protocol that would have protected Ohio against this kind of rigging?
No, you have to look at the source code.
So no, you could not protect against this kind of fraud electronically. You could not protect against it automatically. It could be programmed into a system at the base level where the source code itself is flipping and ignoring votes to the level of a 5149.
You get probably programmers from both or all parties to look at the source code and determine if there's anything in there that shouldn't be there. I mean, it's a simple program. You're adding 1 to a person's total. It's 100 lines of code tops. There's
All right.
really easy.
Are you aware of whether there was any protective action in Ohio?
Now, keep in mind, he has already testified. There is no way to protect against this except verifying the votes by hand. And immediately, these old people who are in charge of our government prove that they do not understand technology and immediately ask again.
Against this kind of vote rigging through software?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
You were not asked to assist in the development of any protective system, is that correct?
No, I was not.
In Europe, have you reviewed at all the...
So, he told them that I was told to create the software. This software is undetectable by anything but a source code check or counting of the votes by hand. Then they say, could there be protections? No. Were there protections in place in Ohio? I don't know. So you're saying that, like, think about that level of questioning. They've already tried to move past the certainty that the votes could be fixed. And now they're trying to imply there's some way to protect against it.
election
Even though
results
he's
in
already
Ohio?
told them there's not.
No, I haven't.
Okay. Given the availability of such vote rigging software and the testimony that has been given under oath of substantial statistical anomalies and gross differences between exit polling data and the actual tabulated results, do you have an opinion whether or not the Ohio election, presidential election, was hacked?
Yes, I would say it was. I mean, if you have exit polling data that is significantly off from the vote, then it's probably hacked.
Remember, there's video footage of people approaching ballot boxes in the 2020 election. All of the private ballot boxes were on film. There were 230 individuals that approached one of the private ballot boxes, from which 1,721 votes were cast. So unless every one of those people were putting in more than one ballot, that is not physically possible. There is video evidence of people putting in stacks of ballots so large they would not fit through the opening in one group and required to be put in multiple groups. The day after, people who were accused of vote fixing got in trouble for fingerprints. All of the people stuffing the ballot boxes started wearing disposable gloves. You can say it's about COVID, but they weren't wearing disposable gloves during COVID up until the very day that people were indicted for vote fraud for stuffing ballots based on the fact that they saw their fingerprints on more than one ballot box, which means they were checking. And the very next day, a memo was sent out that occurred. And suddenly, everyone that showed up to fill ballot boxes with more than one ballot was wearing gloves. And those same people were now taking pictures of themselves putting the ballots into the box. Why would you take a picture of yourself putting the ballot in the box, you say? Well, because if you take a picture of yourself putting the ballot in the box, you get credit and they will pay you because people were getting paid to fix ballots. Why? Well, because they morally had believed that they were doing the good and fighting for democracy by preventing Führer Trump or Comrade Trump or whatever they had convinced themselves he was, who he wasn't, obviously. They convinced themselves that it was morally obligated for them to defraud the election, to prevent the abuse of democracy. So literally, you have people who convinced themselves abusing democracy was the proper solution to preventing the abuse of democracy. And that is why I call them retarded. Literally retarded. The full definition of the word retarded is now people who honestly are that stupid. Autistic people, Down syndrome, none of you qualify as retarded anymore. Because every one of you could have the fucking wherewithal to realize that this is bullshit. But there are people out there who have what science would consider a normal, average functioning brain with no strangenesses, no ADHD, nothing else, no modifiers whatsoever, that honestly believe Donald Trump tried to overthrow the free ruling of America in a country where Obama assassinated so many U.S. citizens it became commonplace without trial, and dropped so many drone bombs in 2015 that we ran out. I had to hear people say that Donald Trump wasn't going to leave the White House and was just going to take over America. The media, and those were regular people. Imagine these fucking retards that are honestly believing he's the next Hitler. They would 100% fix the ballot to prevent Hitler getting elected. So, of course, they'll do it to prevent Hitler, too. Worse Hitler, as I was told they were by the media. So you just have to understand, people will always, the road to hell is always paved with good intentions. You convince well-meaning people to do fucking terrible shit in the name of good. And by the time they realize they're doing evil, it's too late. All the people who were standing up against them have been eliminated.
And your testimony is under oath.
Yes, sir.
And the testimony you've given is true.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So there you go.